Can anyone tell me what is educational technology? This is a very quick revision for last week topic. What I want from you is if you know, if you still remember what is the meaning of educational technology. As we mentioned, education technology is how to utilize technology inside your classroom, right? So it's all about the utilization itself, the process of using technology inside your classroom is educational technology, okay? And what about instructional technology? Instructional technology. What is instructional technology?
Process on how to use or how to imply the technology.
Yes, Fatih, thank you very much. The process, the how, the how to use. It's like the instructions, the guidelines, the framework on how to use the technology the proper way. And we mentioned that in instruction technology, we are gonna need some models that we are gonna study in the incoming weeks. All right. So you need to be able to differentiate between these two terms. It's very, very important. All right. And then we studied about the definition of education in general. All right. And we mentioned that without teaching and learning, there will be no education. So teaching and learning is actually the core process of education. And today we are going to study about communication, the communication process. All right. And this is actually very, very related to the meaning of education and teaching and learning. Why? Because when we talk about communication, we are talking about how to understand each other, all right? How to have an argument, how to talk to each other, how to be able to affect the part, the other part that we are talking to, which is mostly the students, okay? So when we're talking about the communication, we are talking about being able to talk, being able to understand, being able to change other people's minds, which are the students, all right? So what is communication? The definition of communication is how to be able to transfer any information that we have as teachers to our students. So it's all about transmitting or sharing the knowledge that we have. And then we actually need communication to be able to change people's mind. So to do that, we need to understand how actually people think. And to do that, we need to talk to people. This is one type of the communication. We will see later on that there are actually many types of communication: verbal, nonverbal, mediated. We will see that in just a second. So verbal communication is using words, sounds, body language, and so on. And then sharing information and knowledge and ideas. We want to change the student's attitude, all right, about something, or we want to actually enhance the student's attitude or skills or whatever. And then it could be an art of conveying information, ideas, whatever. If you see some students are smoking, for example, you want to change this behavior. How? By communicating with your students. So in general, we could say that communication is very important for the education. Without communication, there will be no education at all, because communication is the process of getting in touch with your students. Without being able to communicate with your students, there will be no education at all, right? So anyone would like to define communication for me. What is communication? Guys, make sure to be active during the class because I take notes about the names that usually,
We communicate to other people
okay, communicate to other people. For what purpose?
for any purpose that we want to talk to the people that we want to communicate.
Okay, for any purpose. We communicate with people, communicate with our parents, you know, we communicate with our spouses, with other children, and so on. So communication, without communication, there will be no education, there will be no life, you know. So communication is very, very important when we talk about education um, in general, right? Now, when we talk about communication, we need to understand that there are some variables that communication consists of, okay, which are mostly the sender, receiver, and the content. These three are the the very important variables in any communication process. But there are so many theorists that um, claim that there are much more variables than these three, which are the message itself and the media that we actually transfer the message through, and then the feedback from our students. Now, when we talk about the sender, we're talking about the one that who has the information or who has the knowledge, mostly the teacher, mostly the teacher, okay? Sorry. And then what he is going to transfer is the content, the message, the syllabus, okay? This is the message. And then we have the medium of communication, which is could be the technology, could be the way of teaching, for example, face-to-face classes or online classes. When I use, for example, WebEx, this is the medium of communication now. Um, uh, do I communicate with you verbally or through my body language or through the media? I give you a video, for example. This is the medium of the communication. And then finally, we have the receiver, which is the students that actually going to receive this information. And then finally, we have the feedback. Feedback is the students' perspective. This could be through, let's say, exams. When you do the exams, when you ask the question during the class, this is all feedback. Okay, so anyone would like to tell me what is the main variables and explain them to me when we talk about communication? Anyone?
The main what, doctor?
Main variables of communication process.
The method of delivery, the content of the communication, and as well as the receiving part of the communication.
Okay, that's lovely. So any communication process is consists of these three variables. We will see some models now. Some theorists that claim that there will be more variables that are necessary in any communication process. Okay, so sender, message, and receiver. At the end, we have the feedback that tells us that the students are getting the information. Now, I'm getting the feedback from only one student over 30. So, which means that there is a problem or you guys are shy. I don't know. So, to be able to actually, let's say that we are having a good communication, I need to hear from you guys. Okay, now, as I mentioned, these are the basic communication process. In other perspective, starting with the message. The message is the content, the information, the skills, the knowledge, anything that you want to share to your students. This is the message, the syllabus, the objective of the class for today, for example. All right. These are the message. Now, transmitter encodes the message, which is the sender. What do we mean by encodes the message is to make the message clear for the students to be able to understand. Now, if I share with you this course book, it's going to be very hard for you to actually read and understand the objective of this class. Instead, we have prepared these slides, which are very, let's say, summarized, all right? Just to give you the main or brief idea of technology in education, all right? So transmitting the knowledge is making the message clear to your students. Now, when we talk about encoded message is transmitted, how am I going to actually judge this message has been successfully transferred to my students is by telling if the students already understand the meaning or understand the skills or understand the knowledge that I have received, that I have sent to my students. So number 4 is encoded message is received. Are the students actually being active during the class or being focused? They are not being, attracted to something else. So it's my job as a teacher to be able to actually tell if the students are, let's say, engaged with me, active during the class, and so on. And then finally, receiver decodes the message. Are they able to understand the final outcomes of the lesson? For example, if there will be some, factors that will affect my message. For example, my language is not clear as a teacher. My voice is not loud enough. There are actually noise channels in the class. For example, it's very hot and the aircon is not working. All these could be considered as something that will affect my message, to be received from my students. Okay, so these are the basic communication process of any communication, in a daily basis, not only in education. Okay, so is it clear, guys? Do you want me to repeat?
Yeah, doctor.
Clear,
Clear.
Doctor.
All right. So now let's talk about the models. We have 5 or 6 models of communication process, and these models are based on each theorists. All right. So let's have the first one, which is Shannon-Weaver's model. Now, Shannon have claimed that there are 8 variables in any communication process. Now, guys, the models are very important for you to understand and very important for the exam as well. These are, where you get the question, the tricky question between each model and variables and so on. All right. Now, when we talk about Shannon, he said that the first communication factor is the sender, encoder, channel, decoder, receiver. Now, when we talk about sender and encoder, it's actually one variable, which is the teacher mostly, or the one that has the knowledge, sender and encoder, because the teacher is actually responsible to explain the information for the students. If they are not able to understand, he's going to be repeating the information until the students are clear about the idea. So sender and encoder is actually the same person, which is the one who has the knowledge. Now the channel of communication, which is the way I communicate with you guys. Is it face to face? Is it online? Is it in through my body language, my verbal communication, or I give you a video to watch, which is mediated communication in this case? So the channel is how am I going to conduct my class? And then finally, we have the decoder receiver, which is the one who receive the information. What do I mean by a decoder here is I am referring to, are the students able to actually decode the information, or not all the information is clear for my students to understand? So decode and encode is actually serve the same, let's say, purpose or meaning, which is explaining the information enough for the students to understand, and is the information, clear enough for the students to get. Do you understand the meaning of encoder and decoder? Clear? Okay.
Yes, okay.
All right. Now for the next variable, which is noise. What is noise, guys? That mostly affect the channel of communication. What is noise? Interruption. All right. That's right. Interruption. If there is a technical problem in the class, this could be noise. If there is a problem with me as a teacher, I'm not in the right mood. All right. I'm not, let's say my voice is not loud enough, my language is not clear to the students. This could be a noise to for my students, which will affect the whole process of communication. At the end of the day, they are not going to receive the information that I am giving them, because this noise factors will affect the process of communication. All right. And then now the final variable, which is, yes, the pronunciation could be one factor, noise factor, that could actually give the students a misleading, or it's not clear enough for the students, or it could actually lead to something wrong in their future education, because when they listen the word from you, okay, they actually trust you. So they actually think that this is the correct way to pronounce. So this could be a noise factor as well. Now, finally, we have the feedback. Feedback, as I mentioned, is any, let's say, evaluation or assessment that through this assessment, or through this evaluation, you'll make sure the whole process of communication is successful. And this could be done through examination, through asking the question during the class, making the students explain some points of the class as well, and so on. Now, for the second model, which is Osgood, he mentioned that there are three main, all right, variables for the communication process: the message encoder, interpreter, and the decoder. Now, these three are one. These three are one, which is the receiver and the sender. The receiver is responsible to understand, is responsible to be focused during the class, and he is responsible to be to ask actually a question if there's something not clear. All right, if there's something not clear, the students are required to ask questions to make sure that the information is clear to them. All right. So he is actually responsible to decode the information. If not, he will ask the teacher the questions. Okay. So sender, receiver, and the message. These are three main variables in Osgood information. Now for the sub variables, which is for the sender, encoder, interpreter, and the decoder, same for the students as well. So it's like a circle, two ways of communication. Now, there is one way of communication and this is actually the classic way of education. When the teacher goes in the class and he starts to talk, explain, and then he doesn't even let the students take part in the classroom, and then end of the class, and then he leaves. This is one way of communication, which is very, very wrong. This is not effective at all when it comes to education. Now, the two ways of communication, when we actually mention about two ways of communication, we mean that there will be a great part for the students in this communication process. They receive and they send as well. We let the students express about their opinions, ideas, feelings. Okay, so this is two ways of communication. It's like a circle where actually the teacher could actually learn from his or her students as well. So far, clear, guys? Any questions?
Clear, doctor, no question.
Okay. All right. Now, the next one, as you can see, guys, it's actually all the same. All the models are or have the same factors, but with a different names, different terms. Okay. Now, for Laswell's model, he claimed that there are 5 variables for any communication process: who, what, channel, and whom, and the affect. Who can tell me what is the affect?
The feedback.
Yes, exactly. The feedback. Am I able to affect my students? Am I able to change their mind or their behavior, their attitude? If I see some students smoking, I'll go talk to them. I make the communication very simple and easy. And then for the next week, I'm going to observe. Am I able to actually change their attitude? This is the effect, the feedback. Okay. Who, which is the sender, the teacher, and then the message, the content, the syllabus, and then the media, as I mentioned, the medium that I have used to transfer my knowledge to my students, and then whom, which are the receiver. Okay. And then next we have this model. Now, this model is considered to be a mix between all the models, right? Because we still have 3 main variables, which are sender, message, receiver. Now, but it goes, like in deep information, in deep details, more details above each one of these 3 main variables. For example, the sender, he claimed that he is actually the source of information. The source of information. And he not only the source, but he is responsible to explain, to make everything clear, which is encode the information. Now, these are the, let's say, the role of the sender in this process, in this model. So he is the sender and he is the source of information, and he is responsible to actually explain, make everything clear. Because some of the teachers, when they go to class, they have a purpose to actually explain about this topic and then leave without taking the feedback. And maybe some of the students have no idea or have no background about this topic before. So it's your responsibility as a teacher to make it clear for them. Okay. So sender, he is the source of information and he is responsible for encoding all the information during the class. Sorry. Okay. And now the second variable, which is the message. This message that I have, which is the information or the skills or the knowledge, I am as a teacher, responsible how I'm going to deliver this message the best way I can, which is the signal, the medium of communication, right? So it's different term, but the same meaning. Signal and medium of communication and channel, all right? So it's all the same. And then finally, which is the receiver. He is the, or she is the destination of information, the last destination of information, which is going to receive from the sender. And this receiver as well is responsible to be able to decode the information. Decode is, as I mentioned, to be focused, to be active. If there's something not clear, he will ask questions or she will ask questions and so on. Okay. Now the final model, Berlow's SMCR model. Now this model claim that there are four main variables, which is S, shortcut for source, message, M, channel, C, and receiver, R. All right. So if you can see, guys, all the models has almost the same variable, but with the different terms. That is why you need to be careful and you need to understand each model so that you can differentiate between these models. When we talk about sources, we are talking about common skills, attitudes, knowledge, social system, and culture. All this considered under source. When we talk about message, the elements, the objective, the structure of the course, the content of the course, okay? And when we talk about channel, as I mentioned, it's the way of teaching. Is it verbal, nonverbal, mediated? Is it by seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, and so on? And then finally, the receiver, which are the same variables as the source. So receiver and source mostly are the same variables because we are both human, you know, whether the teacher and the students are human. So they need to commonly use these, you know, variables to be able to understand or to be able to make this communication process a success at the end of the day. Okay, now we are done with communication models. Anyone would like to ask any questions?
Nothing, sir.
So far clear.
All right. Now let's move on to the second part of this class, which is the types of communication. Now, if I ask you guys, what is the most common use of communication? Is it verbal or non-verbal or mediated?
Non-verbal.
Non-verbal.
Non-verbal. And why? Why non-verbal is the most common used communication?
Because it was the most simple communication.
Yes, exactly. It's most simple and we cannot control it actually. It includes all the, let's say, facial expression, the tone of voice, movement, appearance, eye contact, body language, all right? So we cannot actually control when we walk in this street and we actually meet with strangers, we cannot like actually control by looking at them or maybe sometimes smiling, you know. This is considered a non-verbal communication. Okay, so we have three main types of communication: verbal, non-verbal, and mediated. For the first one, verbal communication, it means anything that needs words or need us to talk. Okay, verbal communication is the communication process that uses voice, language, words, okay, as the medium. This could be through videos, live meetings, face to face, radio, right? So since there is actually talking or there are words including in the conversation, this is verbal communication. The meaning or message that we want to deliver will be influenced by, these are the factors that will influence the message that we are going to deliver. The voice, the tone of the voice. Is it loud? Is it um, clear? Is it understandable? Okay. Inflection, the intonation, is it high, low? We could actually tell if the student, if the person is angry by his voice. Okay. And then finally, the speech rate or speed, because sometimes, especially when you study in a different language, not your own mother language, you will find, you will find it like difficult to hear to other people languages. Sometimes it feels like they are actually running, not talking. They are very fast when they talk. So all these variables needs to be considerable during the communication, verbal communication. And then for the nonverbal, it includes anything else but the verbal communication. So anything but the verbal is considered to be nonverbal communication, which includes the facial expression, body language, uh, eye contact, anything that is not verbal is considered to be nonverbal communication. And as I mentioned, we use 65% of our daily basis life nonverbal communication. The third type of communication is called mediated communication. Now, from the term mediated, we are talking about using media. Media is including anything as a tool or TV, books, movies, videos, YouTube, anything that we could actually get the information from is called mediated communication. I'm very sorry for the noise that is happening right now. Now, when we talk about communication, why do we actually need to understand about communication for us as teachers? Because without communication, there will be no education at all.
Education.
So we will not understand our students if we are not able to communicate with them. They will not be able to understand us, or we are not going to understand them as well. Okay. Now, for example, for face-to-face communication, it happens through classrooms, demonstration, and the feedback. So these are the variables of face-to-face classes. All right, through demonstration, through presentation. All right. So why do we need communication? Why do we need communication?
If we don't have any communication, we will be a boring life. We will have a boring life.
Yes, I think we will have no life at all. We need communication because we need to talk about our lives. We need to share our feelings, exchange information. Yes, Shafiq, to educate people, to change their mind, to to serve our country, to serve our families, parents, argue about our ideas, to defend ourselves. All right. So communication is the core of life, not only education. Now, so the purpose of communication is to change the attitude, as I mentioned in the example where we could actually change the attitude of any students that is doing something wrong. Opinion change to deliver knowledge, facts, principles. Behavior change through knowledge and skills to develop behavior in whether it's physical or non-physical skills. Okay. And then finally to social change to actually deliver true explicit knowledge and information for change or continue a relationship between individuals, to be able to argue with other people. So the communication, once again, is the foundation of teaching. Without communication, we are not going to be able to understand people, and thus we're not going to educate them. So learning cannot be achieved without effective communication. If we are not aware of the communication meaning and communication variables, that I am the sender and I have a message to deliver to students, there will be no effective or effectiveness at the end of the day. So effective communication skills must be learned. To be able to teach, you need to learn. Okay, always remember that. If you cannot explain something to a 6 years old kid and he actually able to understand your idea, then you don't have actually a clear idea or a clear understanding about the idea that you are going to teach. So to be able to learn, to be able to teach effectively, you need to learn about the topic. You need to understand it very well. If you are not able to explain it to a child, 6 years old child, and this child will be able to understand, then you don't have the knowledge enough about this topic. Okay, so communication is not just speaking or arranging idea, it's about the understanding about the concept or the idea. Are you able to explain this idea without referring to any presentation, for example, without referring to any source? If you are able to understand or explain about that, then you understand it well. Okay, so communication, one more time, is very, very important. Now, when we talk about noise, if you remember at the beginning of the slides, we have mentioned that there are many, noise factors that could affect the process of communication in our classrooms. These factors could be from you as a teacher, teacher's attitude, as I mentioned, teacher's mood, teacher's voice, okay? These called teacher's attitude factors, all right? If the class, let's say 6 in the morning or 7 in the morning, very, very early, then the readiness of your students is not going to be very high. Most of the students are going to be sleepy, all right? So you need to consider this factor as well, all right? And then there will be a technician, environmental factors. As I mentioned, the air condition is not working, the lighting is not working, the classroom is actually very hot, you know? And then the communication skills, are you able to communicate? Some teachers will just go stand up there in one corner and not, make even eye contact with the students, which is very wrong. You need to be able to communicate with the students, make them comfortable during the class, okay, so that they will actually love or have fun during the class. They'll actually get the idea about getting familiar with the class, with you as a teacher, and so on. These are the human factors. Now, the technical factor, which is the influence of media, is the internet signal not very strong? Your voice is not clear for them through the internet, because the internet, the physical or environmental, as I mentioned, the chairs, the environment, the weather, etc. And then the problem with the message itself. Your voice is not clear. The language is very complicated for your students, okay? Unfamiliar terms, words, definitions. All right, guys? So these are the three main categories of noises: human, technical, and the problem with the message itself. I hope everything is clear so far. Do you guys have any question? Any question?
No, doctor. So far, so good.
Okay, now that's about it for today's class. What I want you to do now is I'm going to actually create this online discussion through e-learning, which is by using one of the communication models. Explain how can you relate it to the process of teaching and learning. Now, what do I mean by that is you need to adopt one model. Imagine yourself in a class and you need to adapt one model and use it through your class. Let's say I want to use this model, channel, okay? So what I'm gonna need is I'm going to explain about each one of these variables. So the sender information source, I'm gonna say maybe one line only, one line about your case, you as a teacher. Okay, what is sender? What does it mean to you? And what is encoding the information means to you? What is the channel in your case? Let's say you want to teach face-to-face classes. So the channel is going to be your voice, let's say the presentation, the slides, the LCD, all right? And if there is any noises or noise factors, whether it's human, technical, and the noise with the message itself. And then finally, the decoder receiver. These are the variables of channel model. So I'm going to explain each one. Okay. Is it clear, the online discussion, guys?
Yeah, doctor.
Okay, so I'm going to post it now in e-learning. I'm going to post it in e-learning. And don't forget, these activities are actually, as I mentioned in our first meeting, there will be 10 marks for e-learning activities. Okay. This activity is one of them. I'm going to post it now. You have the time to actually, I will keep it open for 2 days. Okay, guys?
Okay, doctor.
All right. Okay, guys. Since there will be no question, I will end this meeting right now. And then,
Doctor, can I ask you for one question?
yes, please. Yes, go ahead.
In the communication model for Loswell model,
Mm-hmm.
we have channel in the bracket medium. What is mean for that?
Sorry?
Yes. We have the purple box channel medium, right? What's mean
Channel.
of what's mean of that?
Okay. Okay. So channel, as I mentioned here, is the medium of communication. All right. Medium of communication is what media or what tool that I use to make this communication happens. For example, in my case now, when we using WebEx, the medium of communication is online meeting. Using WebEx, using my laptop, using my PowerPoint slides. Okay, so the medium of communication in this case is online meeting. If you are meeting with the students face to face, so the channel or the medium of communication is face to face verbal communication plus the LCD plus the PowerPoint slides.
Understand, doctor. Thank you.
Yes, most welcome. Any other question, guys?
Doctor, I have a question.
Yes, please.
For the test in the e-learning, do we need to do it just on the e-learning or we need to do it on words? And is there any word
Yeah.
limits for the answer?
Okay. Now, in the first place, this is not a test, okay? It's just a question, activity. Now, you don't have to do it through words. It's very simple, very, very simple. You can actually answer through words and upload your file, no problem. Okay. But remember, I don't want to see, a copy and paste answer. I want to see your understanding about this model. Any model. You are free to use or choose any model and then adapt it in your classroom. Let's say I want to use channel. And then in my case, I'm teaching, for example, English, all right, to first grade. So the information is going to be ABCs, all right, okay, and then the medium of communication is going to be online meeting using WebEx, and then the feedback is going to be I'm going to set an exam, final exam or activity at the end of the class. Okay, so it's very simple, one line for each variable. Do not make it hard. Okay, take it very easy. I just want to see your understanding. So you can actually answer it within 3 minutes. All right, do not make a big deal of it. All right, guys.
Understood, Doctor.
Okay, Doctor. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Doctor,
Yes.
in Shannon model, we have north side interaction each other, right? So
Okay.
that means in others model, we doesn't have it.
Okay, let me share first. We have channel that he claimed that noise affect the channel of communication. All right. For other people, you need to consider the models without confusing each one of them. So if there is no noise in other models, means that this person claimed that there is no noise variable. So in channel waivers model, there is noise, and this is based on his claim or hypothesis. Okay, so this model is only for channel. That is why I mentioned that it's very tricky for you in the final or even in the first test to differentiate between each model. So yes, others, they don't have noises, but Shannon has a noise.
All right, Doctor, thank you.
Okay. Is it clear, guys? Any other questions? Please don't be shy to ask questions. I love questions. So take your time to ask anything you would like to ask. I am open for it before we end our meeting. No more questions? Okay, guys. Thank you very much for being here today. And I'll see you, inshallah, next week. I will post the e-learning question in a minute. I'll let you know. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Doctor.